Hello and welcome to the Altarian Pro Cup Series 2020 preseason testing video. In this video, we will be talking about some of the teams and some of the background information on the Altarian Pro Cup Series. The Olina Sports Network has never covered the Altarian Pro Cup Series before, so I think it's important that we kind of break the ice a little bit and understand what Altaria and the Altarian Pro Cup Series is all about. This is the first time that the Altarian Pro Cup Series will ever be broadcasted on international television. And the mysterious nation of Altaria, for the first time ever, is going to be under the spotlights of international television. Let's take a look at some of the Altarian background. The country of Altaria has been split into now 12 different provinces, as you can see on the map. There are the Altarian Capital Zone, Bowman Bay, Serana, Wybreeze, Peninsulan, Cathanex, Toria, the Free Populous State, Polar Zone, Feltzer, Vice. And Vice are the 12 areas of Altaria. And drivers in this Altarian Pro Cup Series hail from all 12 of these regions. However, for the most part, you will see your drivers from Feltzer, Toria, over towards maybe the Armory Capital Zone, and maybe up to Cathanex tend to be the most popular areas, with Serana and Carthanda, which I think I might have forgotten Carthanda on the rundown there, with Serana and Carthanda having only one driver apiece. Of course, those are probably the two poorest regions of the entire area. Not all regions are represented by a racetrack, though. As you can see, there are some regions that have two racetracks and other regions that have none. Serana's racetrack, the Serana Desert Thunder Speedway, has been covered over by a sandstorm recently. The Free Populous State, in a war with Toria, seized the Torian International Speedway. However, due to some political unrest, Armory, the capital of Altaria, has not allowed the Free Populous State to host any football games, or any sporting events, including football games and motor racing events in their zone. So the Free Populous State will not be able to host any game or any sporting events. Despite Toria being quite in debt as a province, they have built their own racetrack, so we will see that. They are currently building it. It is not done yet, so Toria had to switch with Byron Bay International, or with Bowman Bay International. I'm sorry if I said Byron Bay. With Bowman Bay International Raceway's date in order to get their new track done in time. Also new to the schedule, or the second new track on the schedule, is the Caledonia Speedway in Feltzer. They had an original track on the schedule, however that track had recently kind of fallen into disrepair, and Caledonia Speedway is a track seemingly modeled after the Armory Digital Speedway, located in the capital, where the season opener takes place. We will be now going to preseason testing now, and we will kind of go over each of the teams going forward. The first team on the team chart is the In-Vitro Factory team. This series is, of course, split up amongst four manufacturers, or four different car makers: the In-Vitro Coquette, the Banshee, the Feltzer, and the Sultan Terran there. So we've got the Coquette, Banshee, Feltzer, and Sultan in this field. Of course, we are at one of Sultan's home tracks here. This is the Sequoia International Raceway here in Peninsulan. And this is the night test, of course. The In-Vitro Coquette is the fastest car in a straight line, and tends to do pretty well on higher speed tracks. Actually Hayden goes off the road there. The In-Vitro Factory team is a team of Drew Hayden. Hayden is a driver that's been around for a couple of years now. This is his fourth season in the series. Of course, comes from a rich but yet controversial family. His brother Xander, however, was involved in an accident. He is, of course, was a driver in this series. Xander Hayden was a driver in the series, and yet was involved in a very scary incident at the Armory Digital Speedway and, well, perished from the accident. So he is, of course, the only driver in the Altarian Pro Cup that has ever passed away in competition. That was, of course, I think in a practice session, if I recall correctly, at the Armory Digital Speedway. His teammate this year is a very controversial figure, Mastero Maldonado, from the FPS region. Actually, he's not originally from the Free Populous Zone. However, Free Populous Zone, he now, I guess, calls his home, after supporting the rather controversial regime in the Free Populous Zone. And, or Free Populous State, I'm sorry, Free Populous State, as, Mastero Maldonado is known for, being quite aggressive out on track. So watch Maldonado to, and he's also quite vocal in press conferences as well. Maldonado has been known to anger some of his competitors on the track. However, Maldonado has won races before in the series. I would expect him to be a threat for some wins and possibly the championship in the In-Vitro Coquette, because that is one of the fastest teams on the grid. If the In-Vitro Factory team doesn't win the championship, isn't the favorite of the championship, then ProDrive probably is. This Banshee organization has some of the fastest drivers in the entire field on the grid, probably the best driver lineup. However, they don't really have a car that seems to be handling all that well for them, as shown there by Jesse Turner going off the road. Speaking of Jesse Turner, he is the first driver. This is his second year in competition. He was, of course, fighting for Rookie of the Year last year. Did not win, or it is actually his third year in competition, I am sorry. Did not, I believe, win a race in his career. He has not won a race, going for his first victory. However, jumping up with ProDrive is a very big step for him. Of course, he is known for his open wheel ability on the track as well. The Bowman Bay driver has been son of a wealthier son of a former plane mechanic, Jesse Turner, so a blue-collar worker there. Of course, he is from the area near the Altarian International Airport. His teammate is the driver who finished runner-up last year, Kenny Myatt. Myatt is known for his, he was runner-up last year and just lost the championship in a very short match there. He's, of course, from this region of Peninsulan. Of course, Peninsulan is a very touristy region and known for its rather nice, large sequoia forests and amusement parks in this area, water parks, concert venues, all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of tourists to market out here. However, ProDrive is, however, Kenny Myatt really doesn't like a lot of that. However, Myatt, if he wants to put on a big championship hunt here, he is going to have to improve himself on some of the ovals, because he tends to be a pretty good road course racer and tends to drag the ProDrive car up the grid higher than it should be on the road courses. However, he does struggle on the ovals. We'll see if that's going to be a factor going forward. The next driver on the grid is Colt Hudson. Hudson is, of course, a younger driver on this grid today, and Hudson is looking to perform quite, that's the word I'm looking for, quite well here. Hudson, once again, sorry about that. He is another Bowman Bay resident. This is his third season in the series, and Colt Hudson is looking at doing his racing region proud, as he is a late modeler, so expect him to be strong on some of the road courses, or on some of the short tracks. The final driver on the grid is Kyle Weinert, driving the 47 Banshee here, as we see him coming out of the pits here at Sequoia International Raceway. Kyle Weinert is a driver who's one of the more experienced drivers on the grid. However, he is, again, another controversial figure. He likes to throw a lot of shade at the officialing body, shady statements at them, and his fellow competitors. He is very critical of some of his fellow competitors, and he's even to the point called the series rigged on a couple of occasions, and saying that if things don't change in the series, he will leave the series. However, I don't think he really knows how good of a driver how popular Kyle Weiner is, because Kyle Weiner is not one of the more popular drivers. In fact, the fans basically hate him, as does his teammates. So I think he needs a case. I think Weiner is a case of him needing to know that this series was here before him, and it will be sure as heck here after he is gone. Right behind Weiner is the Feltzer Factory team, led by Jack Halleck, a driver who a lot of fans really like to be around. Jack Halleck, one of the more popular drivers on the grid here. Jack Halleck is from the Feltzer region, and he, of course, nabbed 2 wins last season for the Factory Feltzer team, and is looking very strong going forward and wants to be a definite championship contender. Feltzer was very disappointed that their factory team didn't win the championship last year, and that one of the privateer teams did. However, with Halleck under control of the team, I'm expecting Jack Halleck to be a very serious contender going forward for this championship. Alongside of him, of course, he won those 2 races at the old Feltzer racetrack. Alongside of him at Feltzer's factory team, we have Deltroy Zermatt. Zermatt is, of course, probably the favorite for the Rookie of the Year this season. He's come up through the Feltzer development program, and, well, is a favorite for Rookie of the Year. However, the Feltzer cars have not been that strong in preseason testing so far, so I'd be a little concerned if I was the Feltzer factory team, and they might want to develop their Feltzers a little bit more, because even though a Feltzer team did win the championship last year, well, it's not exactly going to benefit them that much if their cars this year aren't doing very well. Next up is Wilmington Brothers Racing, and they drive, the Wilmington Brothers Racing team are led by both Casey and Todd Wilmington, along with their sister, Fiona. Lead this team, so it really should be Wilmington Family Racing, but I digress. This team's under massive scrutiny by the Altarian government because, as you may know, Casey and Todd Wilmington's father, Michael Wilmington, is the Deputy Prime Minister of the country. Well, there's a lot of investigations involving their airplane company out of Vice, and some questionable antics have been taking place about what have been transported on their planes. We don't really know what it is, but the Wilmington Airline Company's headquarters has been recently raided and their factory has been as well, their storage facilities, so we're not quite sure what Casey and Todd Wilmington will be doing. They're, of course, fast, but neither of them have won a race ever in... Ooh, Todd Wilmington on the wall there. Neither of them have ever won a race in Altarian Pro Cup. However, Todd Wilmington is a driver, and Casey Wilmington could theoretically do pretty well because they've got those in vitro coquettes, which seem to be some of the best cars on the grid. Now we're going to the car that was the champion car last year. This is the 12 car of Backstop Racing. Hold on. I always say this wrong. Backstorm Racing. I am sorry there. Backstorm Racing has been under a lot of controversy lately with their leader, Gregory Caspine. Caspine is, of course, owner of a military weapons firm where they are a manufacturer. So I would expect it's already a pretty controversial topic, having somebody who makes military weapons running a motorsports team. However, DJ Curtis, driver of the 12 car, wasn't the driver of the 12 car last year, as Carl Britton was the driver of the 12 car, winning the championship over Kenny Myatt at the Streets of Armory. However, the biggest thing going forward that you need to know is that he wanted a bigger contract. Britton did. And, well, quite frankly, Gregory Caspine didn't. Britton was threatening, or leaked some information about Caspine's alternative business venture, which is the weapons firm. And since he made those statements, no one has seen him since. Britton. Carl Britton. He's kind of vanished. There's been massive manhunts looking all over the Torian region for him. However, no one can find him. DJ Curtis was brought in after coming over from another team on the grid. I believe he came over from the Sequoia team, so he switched alliances to Feltzer and basically got the contract that Britain wanted, because nobody really wanted to drive for this team after, well, some rather shady deals have gone down. However, Curtis and his teammate Cody Lamas in the 40 know that it's probably not a great idea to speak ill will of your team owner or his business ventures. Cody Lamas is, of course, one of the quietest drivers on the grid, and that's probably the reason why. He's been around for 3 years, and I believe actually does have a victory to his name at Vice City a couple of years ago. Next up is Red Bull Racing, the first of the Sultan teams. They're, of course, getting factory Sultan material alongside Sequoia. The Sultans are known to be the lowest powered car on the grid, but have a lot of aerodynamic downforce, so therefore they can really grip these tracks well. This is, of course, their own personal testing ground, so watch the Sultans do pretty strong here when we get to Sequoia International once for the regular racing weekend. Red Bull has drivers Ezekiel Proctor and Vince Freeze on the grid. Proctor resides from Vice City. Very mixed bag driver he is. Very volatile. However, he is a proven race winner in this series, and well, he has a number of seasons under his belt in the Altarian Pro Cup. He needs to, he has won races before, actually was a former champion of the series, Ezekiel Proctor is. I believe in 2016 he won the Altarian Pro Cup Championship. Can't forget that. Including sweeping the weekend at Armory, which sweeping a weekend is very hard to do with the grid reversals that we do here in the series. Alongside of him, we have Vince Freeze in the 21 car. Freeze is, of course, a driver from, you can probably guess, the Polar Zone. Of course he is from the Polar Zone. He is also a renowned ice cream man. He has his own ice cream truck at all of the tracks, and he's actually from, his family also owns a ice cream manufacturing firm. However, he is very proud of his Polar Zone heritage. Of course, his ancestors were political prisoners and were exiled there, basically, from one of the other regions, I believe Toria or Wybreeze, I can't remember which. It was one of those two, though. Or maybe it was Feltzer, I don't know. One of those three. And who knows, it could be another one, knowing my luck today. But Vince Freeze is quite proud of his Polar Zone heritage, where temperatures rarely get above, like 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Or 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Very rarely do they go above 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So Red Bull is a team to watch. This team is very strong, and Vince Freeze has joined the team, coming over from another team. Oh, it looks like one of the Feltzers get off the track in the background there, as Vince Freeze is a driver to watch this season, along, obviously, with Ezekiel Proctor, who has been in the top 5 in points. Proctor has for the last 4 seasons straight. So, last 5 seasons straight, I believe. So, Ezekiel Proctor is a championship contender. Next up on the lineup is Polar Racing, who is a team from the Polar Zone, brand new team this season, with 2 rookie drivers, Pat Smith and Tetsuya Inouye. Let's take a look at Inouye here. Tetsuya Inouye is a rookie, obviously, who has kind of drew the ire of some of his competitors. Very stupidly aggressive. This man has made a lot of enemies in the first preseason testing session we had earlier today. Was very aggressive with his driving abilities and hasn't been very fast either. He's, of course, the second slowest driver on the grid right now. Even though he has a customer N.Retro Coquette, he has been quite slow. His teammate, Pat Smith, is a driver from, I believe, the Torian region, or it might be Cathnex. No, Peninsulan, I'm sorry. Completely wrong. He's from here. Rallier from Peninsulan. We don't see a lot of Ralliers in the series, but Rallier here. This team has struggled, and they aren't getting modern equipment. They are getting year-old Coquettes, so watch this team possibly to struggle going forward, or at least in their debut season. Of course, they are run by the only female team owner on the grid, that being Vernetta Thompson, who is a retired nuclear physicist. Of course, the Polar Zone, as some might know, is a power haven with all kinds of nuclear power plants. And Vernetta Thompson ran one of the nuclear power plants and owned a nuclear power plant and ran it, and basically supplied the entire, I believe, Pfälzer and part of the Taurian region with power with her nuclear power plant. So, in her spare time now that she's sold off that plant to the government, basically, I believe it is now I believe now it's actually the Free Populist Zone's government nuclear power plant. Now that she's sold it, she now runs a racing team. So, good on her for a woman owner of a team here in a climate that isn't really friendly to women involvement in sporting events. The Altarian region has developed culturally quite rapidly in the last couple of years. Next up is Simpson Racing in their customer Banshees. They get the year-old Banshees. They're the only other Banshee team out there. They have a 4-car team led by Frentzen Heinzarld. Heinzarld is, of course, a proud Catholixian and one of the few Catholixians on the grid. And so he is going to be a driver to watch going forward because he is very well liked. He was a major championship contender in the series last season. And he will be a driver to watch going forward for the Banshees going forward, because those cars aren't exactly as slow as they normally are. Oops, sorry once again there. Next up on the grid for Simpson Racing is Jack Marriott. Marriott is a very fast driver for this team. As I look on the sheet to his bio sheet, he is from Vice. And he is a driver that has gone around a couple of teams. He is a driver, but not really from this series much. He is from mainly from an open wheel series, an international open wheel series driver. So he really thrives in dangerous situations, he claims. So watch out for Jack Marriott going forward this season. Next up on the grid, we have Paul Termanian, the most experienced driver on the grid. Termanian is, of course, a driver to watch every year. He is, of course, one of the original drivers on the grid, who was an alcohol runner in the Taurian... Or no, I'm sorry, I got him mixed up with somebody. He is a proud Taurian man. He has, of course, been around for a while. He's one of the original drivers. I did get that right. And he was an alcohol runner. I am sorry. That is my fault there. He is a former alcohol runner. I was looking at another name here. And I actually took a few years off to lead the Taurian Provincial Army against the Free Populists who were trying to separate from the Taurian regime and form their own regime. Unfortunately for them, that was a failure for them. The Free Populist state became a provincial province after that, and they kind of want more than that. Finally, for the Simpson Racing team, we have Avril Mead in the 42 car. There is Mead in a really nice-looking 42 there. I always like that black and green scheme there, led by a local garage in the area. Of course, that team is the lowest-funded team. However, it is sponsored by the garage that Brad Simpson owns himself. It's just kind of an exotic car garage there. So watch out for Avril Mead in that car there. Mead is from Peninsulon here, right here in Peninsulon, and she is a very strong contender for possibly to not be, could be a very strong contender if she would cut down on the aggressiveness like she just showed right there. Flashes of brilliance, though, have been clear, and she probably could have won a race or two last season, but didn't. By a mile, this has been the slowest team on the grid. This is the Free People's Movement Motorsport car. The Free Populist State, basically government-run team led by driver Captain Faulkner Wiley Jones, who has no motorsports experience at all outside of street racing as a young kid, basically, in his teens, in the former Taurian capital, now capital of the Free Populist State of Urbanka. Watch out for Captain Wiley Jones to be a driver to watch, but not for good reasons. He has been noticeably off the pace. Equipment seems slow, and Wiley Jones seems quite out of his depth in this series as well. Wiley Jones that is not a year-old Sultan, that is a 2-year-old Sultan. Of course, that is the only car on their team. 3 teams to go now. Gabriel Faust is a... And that's all we know about Gabriel Faust, is that what we just had said. Scott Corrigan is her teammate. This guy is a former runner as well, known to run some... so this series for a long time, a couple of years now. Corrigan raced for Zerspoochie, which is the next team we're going to be talking about. Very aggressive back marker there. Obviously, the Zerspoochie cars weren't exactly the fastest cars on the world, but Zerspoochie was. But he arguably cost Kenny Myatt the championship when he blocked as a lap down car Myatt, and Myatt had to then had to concede a position to the eventual championship winner, Carl, what was his name again? Carl Britton. I couldn't think of his name there for a second there. Carl Britton eventually won the championship based on Corrigan blocking Myatt. So Myatt was not very happy with Corrigan at the end of that, claimed that the championship should have been a more fair fight had Corrigan not have blocked him. The Scuderia Y-Breeze team, they are using year-old Coquettes. However, they are looking to possibly do really well. Obviously, the In-Vitro Motor Company is based in the Y-Breeze region, and, well, the team is Scuderia Y-Breeze, so since they have changed over to Coquettes this season, they are very proud to have a Y-Breezian driver for the first time ever driving for Scuderia Y-Breeze. 2 teams to go now. This is Patrick Smith in the Zerspoochie car from Toria. Patrick Smith is. Smith is, of course, obviously the Scuderia, or the Zerspoochie team has never been the strongest team on the planet, and they do kind of have the worst car on the grid right now. And there's, of course, a second Patrick Smith. There's Pat Smith and Patrick Smith, so that's going to be interesting to watch going forward. Patrick Smith is, of course, from Toria and is very proud of his Torian heritage. However, when they had Banshees for this team, he did pretty well with them. When they went to the Sultans, they did not do well. Oh, crash right there! That might have been on another rookie there. We'll get to him in a minute, but Patrick Smith went around, and oh, Kenny Myatt from the region gets involved there. That's not good for Patrick Smith. That's the first accident of preseason testing there. Good avoidance there by that driver there. But they did manage to get a win with one of the Banshees, but not with a Sultan, obviously. So Sultan, of course, has never won a race in the series, which might change this year with Sultan's recent push for results. However, Patrick Smith does have a win on the series. I believe that was at the Old Torian International Raceway. However, we will see how that goes for Patrick Smith. My apologies once again there, clicked off of it. The other driver for Zerspoochie is Chase Dunbar, a Feltzerian from, obviously, the region of Feltzer, known as an open-wheeler and karter, and has just basically come over here to race in this series. Obviously, a rookie here, an open-wheeler normally, but has been really excited to race in the Altarian Pro Cup here, instead of going international open-wheel racing. Driver seems to be pretty good. Good friends with the Haydens as well, so that might become a very interesting factor going forward as well. The final team is the Sequoia Racing Enterprises team. This is known as the Factory Red Bull, or as the Factory Sultan team here. Never won a race this series, but never really did much going forward with Sultan. However, with their cars getting some massive improvements, I'd expect the Sultans to be quicker. Driver Daniel Bouchard was involved in that practice session crash with the driver of the with Patrick Smith there, as Daniel Bouchard goes off the road, comes back on the track, and or that was actually the car in front of Daniel Bouchard there. Bouchard was a previously Feltzer factory driver, but switched his alliance to Sultan after he did not suit the Feltzer that easily, even though the Feltzer was the best car of the season last year. Next car for the team is if Deltroy Zermatt is not the Rookie of the Year, Cyrus Hammond might be. The Carthandon, the first ever Carthandon to come into the series. Of course, Carthandon is an incredibly impoverished region of the Altarian state, basically. Cyrus Hammond basically won this ride on a test drive and basically was a simulator driver because of it since then. And now Cyrus Hammond gets his chance for the Sequoia Racing team, or Racing Enterprises team, which he does intend to really support Carthandians and hopefully gets Carthanda in a little bit better of a financial state through his hopeful prowess in this series. But basically, the entire hearts of Carthanda ride on his shoulders because there isn't a lot to be hopeful for in that region after massive drought kills off their agriculture for the last 10 years, and overall just not a good shape there in Carthanda. And Cyrus Hammond came up through the ranks basically on his own to become a serious threat going forward. David Lubin is the third driver for the Sequoia Racing Enterprises team. Lubin is from the Cathnex region and has been very strong in the was very strong champion in the Altarian Lights Cup, and now Lubin was a previous Zerspucci driver, yet comes over to Sequoia, and basically this season joins the third Sequoia team here. Obviously Sequoia is going up from 2 to 4 cars this year since their involvement with the Sultan factory there, so it's good to see Lubin on the grid. And the final driver we need to cover is driver Nathan Ormond. Ormond is a driver from the Taurian region, known as a almost statistical genius here. Very good at pit strategy, this man is. He comes up with it on his own based on how his car is driving, and he can seemingly have a position for a lot of other cars on track here. Ormond is a driver who is a 3-time open-wheel driver champion. However, in the series, he won races in the open-wheel series in karting, open-wheel karting championships, 3 of them growing up. And now that he's in the Altarian Pro Cup, he needs to basically kind of get that under his belt, because he hasn't been exactly the strongest driver in Altarian Pro Cup. He has come close to some wins with the Sultan. However, obviously Sultan hasn't won a race, and yet he probably needs to just expand on his strategic knowledge a little bit more to possibly grab that first win. If anybody's going to bring that first win, it's either going to be Proctor or probably Nathan Ormond based on his strategy skills. A couple of more important things about the season before we conclude this video. As you can see on the map of Altaria, there are tracks are listed in yellow. Each weekend we'll have 2 races. 2 races. The first race, well, before the first race, there will be a qualifying session. The pole sitter gets 5 bonus points. Then, the first race, you will have the top 10 get points. Up on the screen, you will see a points system coming up on the screen here. Then, the top 10 gets points. Then, what happens is, the top 10 are moved to the back of the field. Then 11 through then 11th on up gets to run the race. So 11th place starts on pole for race 2, etc. So the top 10 have to get through the field pretty quickly there. That is just kind of the way that it works. When you win race 1, you have to start in the back for race 2. So that should make things quite interesting going forward, especially on some of the road courses and short tracks, where traffic can be a big concern if you've got a rocket ship car in the back. So the drivers of the Altarian Pro Cup are ready to hone their racecraft for another season of Altarian Pro Cup action. Who do you think will become the next champion of the Altarian Pro Cup? Which car manufacturer will rank supreme? All that will be determined at the end of this season. I'll see you at Armory Digital.